We are planning, get to Ahmedabad as soon as possible.
तो आप आ जाओ अहमदाबाद कब आ रहे हो?
अरे Karim is in Holland right now.
Yes, I know. I've been seeing his posts.
And I'm going at the end of the month. Where I'm coming back to India in November, but I'll be in Dehradun only. I don't think I'll be able to travel anywhere. So, but anyway, hopefully soon.
Yes, come.
जल्दी आइए, काफी साल हो गए.
बहुत साल हो गए. We are missing Charanagar like anything.
दादी जी नमस्कार. आपको बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया.
नमस्कार.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने समय निकाला.
धन्यवाद.
आनंद जी, दादी is a national, he's a chairperson of the anti-DNT committee formed by the government of India.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is really honored that he's today here.
Thank you for joining us.
धन्यवाद.
So Dakxin, should we wait for a couple of minutes or start now? What do you suggest?
I think we should start.
People can join as they come in. People will be coming in from different time zones as well.
Yes.
Hello everybody here. Thank you for joining us on this kind of what might be the first online book event of Navayana. We have done other kind of events on Zoom and such, and Vimukta was a book. I would request those who are not speaking to mute themselves if possible. So Navayana was to publish this book just ahead of the lockdown, and then Corona and the lockdowns happened, so things got delayed. I especially remember Madhu Singh, who is here, one of our authors, translators, particularly asking what is happening to the book. We couldn't at that point. Yeah, hi Madhu. So we couldn't really. It's a difficult book to kind of what you call sell in the market, especially for an issue which is usually neglected. So we were very keen and to do it at the right time, and then we finally decided that the DNT Vimukta day was the day of the launch. But on that day, 31st, we couldn't do because there were so many events happening, and we decided on today. So it's an honor to publish this book. Alex and I love working on it. The proofreader loved reading it. We did it in circumstances which were tough. We managed to get a few excerpts in Scroll and other places ahead of the book. So I'll hand it over to Dakxin right now. And he'll tell us why Henry has not been able to join us. And we have a video from Henry, and I'll now hand over the proceedings to Dakxin Bhai.
Thank you so much, Anand. This small event will be, we will be hosting, me and Roxy. We both will be introducing our guest speakers here. Unfortunately, Henry's father is not well. So he's traveling, and that is the reason actually he couldn't join, but he sent his small video, video message. So I request to Anand to play first that message, and then we'll start the program.
As I play it, just tell me, I'm now removed my earphones. Can you hear it all?
Good evening, everyone. Thank
Yes.
you for coming.
Is this audible?
It is audible.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. I am Professor Henry Schwarz, recently retired from Georgetown University here in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And I regret that I can't be live on the call. I've had a family situation and I'll be forced to travel as soon as I finish sending this greeting. But of course, we're all here to announce the publication of this marvelous new volume from Navayana Publishers, Vimukta, Freedom Stories, which I have co-edited with my dear friend, Dakxin Bajrange. I'll keep it very short. Our story goes back to 1999 when I was introduced to the criminal tribes by Mahasweta Devi. And we met the performers of Buddha Theater in Bhopal at the first national conference of the denotified and nomadic tribals. My career was then handed off to Dr. G.N. Davy, who more or less guided my scholarly activity and led me increasingly to the Chara people and to Chara Nagar. And while I was researching various academic volumes, I can show you one that came out in 2010 about the criminal tribes with this marvelous photograph of the young actors of Budan. While I was researching this volume, I was trying to come to grips with this phenomenon of criminality. And over 20 years, I gradually retooled my book learning to come closer and closer to the everyday lived reality of the denotified or formerly criminal or Vimukta people. And after a time, I got sort of tired of scholarship and had met all these extraordinary characters, Kanjibai Patel and Dhruv Bhatt, Kalpana, Gagekar, Dakxin, of course, Kushal, Batange, and so many others, and began to collect their stories. And so after a time, I was ready to publish another book. And my original conception was to do a more scholarly volume of archival materials that I had collected during the publication of the last one, since that was so difficult to put together. But in the intervening period, the internet happened and Google Scholar and all this scanning of pages and making available digital editions and so on and so forth. So it became redundant. And what became really interesting was the contemporary drama of the Vimukta Jatis, the people on the ground living with the contemporary stigma of being former criminals. So those stories are what we collected. And Navayana, which I've mentioned, a superb press with really fantastic attention to its authors, helped editorially to shape the volume into one that was contemporary and creative rather than historical and scholarly. And for that, I'm very grateful. I needed the guidance, and the stories in the book speak much louder than any dusty scholarship, much of which is better forgotten, frankly. But I wish to express my tremendous gratitude to the press, to Dakxin Bhai himself, who's become a lifelong friend, all his family, all the people of Charanagar, where I've spent so much time, and to the contributors themselves. I've mentioned Kalpana, Kanjibai, Dhruv Bhatt, Kushal, and others who are, all of whom I know personally and have met during this crazy journey, to Mahasweta, who started it all off, to Sir, that's G.N. Davy, who shepherded the project in my stumbling and my naivete as I encountered this world. And yeah, there's not much more to say. I mean, I'm really delighted by the volume. I'm so happy to break out of the scholarly mold and to help to publicize and represent some of these remarkable people that I've met, that we've met, that I've been introduced to. And so, yes, the book goes forward and forth into the world, and we'll see what becomes of it. I believe that Dakxin Bhai and Kalpana and Shashwati and myself will have many more adventures in the years to come, inshallah. And we'll see what comes of it. But the extraordinary growth of Budan theater since this time, in the 20-year period, has really been inspiring and colors every aspect now of my life. And yeah, I'm just thrilled to provide a platform, to help provide a platform, really the publisher did that, to bring to light these voices, because the time is well past overdue for this expression to be in print. And of course, the theater has done that to a great extent through filmmaking and theatrical production. But to have a printed volume is a nice thing. Maria Salim will testify to the uselessness of the Indian government to accomplish anything in terms of rehabilitation of these tribes. But what they've done on their own is just extraordinary and a lesson for the world. And I'm very happy to be able to help to bring it to light and to share it. So again, thank you all very much. Namaskar. Salam alaikum. I wish I could be with you, and in a more propitious time, that shall be so. So, Professor Henry signing out. Thank you.
Oh, so thank you. We thank Henry for that. And Dakxin?
Yeah,
Bhai?
I think it's, yeah, of course, because it's like recall entire 20 years journey actually with Professor Schwarz, because since 1999 he's with us and he's keep writing about Buddhan theater, denotified tribes issues. So thank you, Professor. Because I know Alice has to go, she has another meeting. So I'll just, request to Alice to speak. I mean, if by any chance you got the book and you're able to read, or maybe you can share your experiences with denotified tribes, with charas, or whatever way you want. I think for each speaker, we have 5 to 6 minutes. So that would be great if we can, finish at least maximum between 5 to 7 minutes, so everybody can speak in a proper time. Over to Alicia.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and apologies to everyone. I have to leave in 10 minutes because it never happens it never happens, but I have another meeting on another conference just after in which I have to speak. So I got the book. It was kind of held hostage at the Italian airport or the Italian border control for a long time, and I finally got it. So I managed to read bits of it this morning, and it's great to see this work coming together in a publication. I've worked with the Dakxin now for quite a while, and we've been working together quite a lot this last year and a half during the COVID emergency. And I guess I wanted to share a little bit about our latest work, which I think really speaks to some of the themes that the book brings out as well. So when COVID kind of hit, the world, and then India, and this was in May 2020, Dakxin called me. I think we were working on the edits of some other project, and he called me and he was like, well, let's do something because the community is being really affected. We need to find a way to keep our art alive, to document what is going on, and also, to translate, I guess, public health messages to communities that are not receiving this. And so he proposed to work together on this project of producing video podcasts on the pandemic, documenting the situation of the DNT communities during this time, spreading messages and information about the pandemic, and also really keeping alive the art of Buddhan theater and of other groups. As you all know, COVID has really exacerbated some of the long-standing issues that more marginal communities face, and especially with DNT groups. So public health measures like lockdowns have been very difficult to observe for groups that live in more congested situations, but also for groups whose communities are really vital for survival, really, you know, where kinship networks are so crucial for keeping alive, you know, what Dakxin describes as an intimate community that is crucial culturally, but really economically as well. And another issue has been the kind of ban on public gatherings, which has made it impossible for groups like Buddha Theater, but also many other groups to perform their art during the pandemic. And so what we have seen has been a shift from performance, from entertainment for many communities, from performance to begging as a way of making a life. And this has kind of meant a kind of process of de-skilling of communities, but also a further criminalization of these groups, given that begging is one of the most criminalized activities in India. So, like the book says in the play, especially Budhan Bolta Hai, you know, like. Sorry, I think I can hear other voices in the background.
Yeah, I'm going to.
Can people mute?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah.
Thank you. So I remember talking to Dakxin about the first play they wrote around Bhutan, and he was describing it as something that almost came on its own, as almost like a vital force that that Bhutan had to speak. You know, like it's almost something that happened, that it was a force that had to come out, a voice that had to come out. And I think this is what happened also in the last. In the last couple of years, I've working with Dakxin and with these groups has really brought home the force of these communities and the importance of bringing their voices out. And I think the way in which even amidst the most challenging situation, there was this this push to send their messages out. And I've been it's been really impressive to work with this talented group of people. I mean, there's been Dakxin, of course, but a lot of the other participants that work as part of Buddha Theater, who have in the most challenging situation produced turned all their theater art into film. They've learned how to operate cameras and to produce outstanding material, and I think for me it really is it really speaks to the power of these communities to have the voices heard. And I think a collection like this is so important because it's it's a space for these voices to be out, and is voices that I think at this point don't need much mediation from others. They really speak for themselves. And I feel working with Dakxin in the last years has been, I've been in a really, I've seen myself more as the enabler of certain processes rather than anything else. So I'm really pleased to see this book out, and I look forward to reading. I got to read a couple of chapters today. I look forward to finishing the rest and to seeing more work produced by this really talented group of people. So thank you very much for the invitation. And I guess I forgot to share my screen because I wanted to show you some images, but perhaps Dakxin can do it perhaps later. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Alice. It is, I mean, of course, currently, whatever the project we are working, the Buddha Theater is working, it is extremely important right now because during the Corona, what denotified tribes are facing, that we are trying to capture those images in the digital media and trying to reach out to the larger audience, more people to tell our stories. So thank you very much for being with us today. Now I'll request to Kalpana. Kalpana की वैसे उन्होंने अपनी एक ऑटोबायोग्राफी लिखी थी. I'll translate later in English. But कल्पना ने अपनी एक आत्मकथा लिखी थी और एक कहानी मेरी तुम्हारे नाम की किताब में वो पब्लिश हुई थी, जिसमें बुधन थिएटर के 7 एक्टर्स की कहानियां जो ऑटोबायोग्राफीज थी वो पब्लिश हुई थी. तो उनकी जो ऑटोबायोग्राफी है वो दैट इज ट्रांसलेटेड इनटू इंग्लिश. मैं कल्पना से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो ऑटोबायोग्राफी उन्होंने क्यों लिखने की उन्हें जरूरत पड़ी और ऐसा क्या हुआ, क्योंकि जब अपनी बातें जब लिखने के लिए हम बैठते हैं तब बहुत सारी चीजें अपने में से रिलीज होती है, तो ऐसी क्या चीजें आपको महसूस हुई? I'll just translate what I said in Hindi. Kalpana has written a small autobiography, actually, that was published in a book called Kahani Meri Tumhari, I mean stories of mine and yours. So that was the title of the book, published by Bhasha Research and Publication Center. And I asked her to speak about her, why she decided to write her autobiography, and what she felt which motivated her to write her. Yeah, I will request to Roxy to translate what Kalpana says. Thank you, Kalpana.
थैंक यू दक्षिण। मतलब पहले तो कभी ये सोचा ही नहीं था कि ऑटोबायोग्राफी लिखनी चाहिए, क्योंकि लिखना, मुझे लिखने में बहुत आलस आती थी, मतलब बहुत बोरिंग लगता था। और ये जितना भी पार्ट मैंने लिखा है मेरी लाइफ में, सबसे ज्यादा मैंने लिखा है एक्चुअली, जो भी जितना भी मैंने लिखा है वो सबसे ज्यादा लिखा है। तो ऐसे कभी दिमाग में आया नहीं था कि अपने बारे में कुछ लिखा जाए, लेकिन काफी सालों तक बुधन थिएटर में यहाँ वहाँ कई सारी जगह पर जब हम परफॉर्म करते थे, उसके बाद जो भी अनुभव होते थे, उसके बाद कई सारे लोग मिलते थे, उनकी बातें सुनते थे, उनसे कुछ सीखने को मिलता था, हमसे उन लोगों को कुछ सीखने को मिलता था। ये सारी चीजें काफी सालों तक होती रही थी, लेकिन कभी लिखने के लिए इस बारे में सोचा नहीं था। फिर डॉक्टर गणेश देवी जो सर थे, उनका बहुत फोर्स रहा हम सब एक्टर्स जितने भी हम थे बुधन थिएटर में, कि आपको अपने बारे में कुछ लिखना चाहिए, आपको जो भी लगता है। तो पहले तो उन्होंने हम पर बोल दिया कि आप कुछ लिख कर भेजो। तो 2-3 महीना 6 महीने तक हमने किसी ने लिख के भेजा नहीं। फिर सर को ऐसा लगा कि ऐसे ये लोग नहीं लिखने वाले। तो एक दिन ऐसा हुआ कि मतलब ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि सर ने हम लोगों को उठा के तेजगढ़ में 3-4 दिन तक के लिए हम लोगों को बंद कर दिया और कहा अब आपको जो लगे वो लिखिए। तो शुरुआत कहाँ से करें, उसके लिए मेरा आधा दिन ऐसे ही गया था कि मैं क्या लिखूं, कहाँ से लिखूं।
Kalpana, Roxy, can I request you to translate?
Yeah, sure. रॉक्सी
ऑडियो नहीं आ रहा है, म्यूटेड है।
Sorry, yeah. So basically what Kalpana is saying, all her experiences related to Buddhan theatre and all, people wanted to document it, especially Dr. Ganesh Devi, who is the inspiration behind Buddhan theatre. He wanted that, all the struggle that the team, the members of Buddhan theatre, especially Kalpana, is going through, that has to sort of, document it. Kalpana is saying that, she was not interested to write. She was not keen to write anything about herself, but basically it was the inspiration and sort of encouragement, forceful encouragement by Dr. Ganesh Devi, who took all of us to Tejgarh, and he literally sort of told us to write our experiences and all that, and that's how Kalpana started writing her autobiography.
अब मैं स्टार्ट करूं?
हाँ, कल्पना बोलिए।
हाँ। उसके बाद जब लगा कि चलो लिखते हैं, अब लिखना पड़ेगा, ये सोच के लिखना शुरू किया था। और उसमें मेरा बचपन का कोई पार्ट मैंने नहीं लिखा है, क्योंकि उसको दिमाग में आया नहीं कि बचपन का कुछ अनुभव लिखा जाए। पर मेरे जो नाटक की प्रवृत्ति के दौरान के जो मेरे अनुभव है, वो ज्यादातर मैंने उसमें लिखे हैं। और उसके बाद नाटक करते करते अपने समाज से या बाहरी समाज के साथ मेरा मुझे देखने का लोगों का क्या नजरिया है वो मैंने उसमें मेंशन किया है। और उसमें स्पेशली मैंने अपने साथ नाटक को लेकर और अपने मतलब जिसमें एक इंसिडेंट जो है कि जब मैं प्रेग्नेंट थी और 8 मंथ से प्रेग्नेंट थी और उस वक्त भी जब प्ले करने की जरूरत पड़ी तो उस वक्त भी मैंने वो नहीं सोचा कि बच्चे का क्या होगा। तो वो सारे अनुभव मेरे लिए जब ये किताब में छप गए और उसके बाद मुझे ये लगता है कि ये सारी चीजें जो है वो डॉक्यूमेंट होनी चाहिए, बिल्कुल होनी चाहिए। क्योंकि पता नहीं किसके साथ ऐसा हुआ है वो पता नहीं, लेकिन मेरे साथ हुआ है कि 8 मंथ प्रेगनेंसी के साथ मैं कहीं प्ले कर रही हूँ और उसमें मुझे कहीं फिसलने का डर है, मुझे कहीं गिरने का भी डर है, फिर भी मैं प्ले कर रही हूँ, फिर भी मैं नाटक कर रही हूँ। तो वो सारे अनुभव को लेकर मुझे लगा कि अच्छा हुआ मैंने कुछ लिखा। रॉक्सी ट्रांसलेट करना है कि और
ठीक है, आप जरा बात करिए ऑडियो मॉड्यूल के लिए।
So another, she is actually saying that I mean, mainly she has mentioned in her biography her commitment to theater. It was she has mentioned an incident wherein she was pregnant with 8 months of I mean, she was pregnant with 8 months, and at that time she performed a play called Bhoma in Gandhinagar. So she is also saying that she has faced a lot of criticism from both from within the society, from outside the society, Chara society also, for participating in theater activities. But her commitment to theater, she's saying that was it was to a larger extent, and that's how she continued doing theater. And when she actually mentioned the incident of her being pregnant and also performing during her pregnancy, that commitment to theater, when she was able to jot that out in her biography, she said that it was excellent for her to mention that part in the biography. Yes, Kalpana.
यस। तो ये सारा लिखने के बाद और पढ़ने के बाद जब लोग इस बायोग्राफी को पढ़ते हैं और उसके बाद जो फीडबैक मिलता है उसको लेकर मुझे अब लगता है कि फिर से लिखना चाहिए कुछ, फिर से अपने बारे में, क्योंकि उसके बाद भी काफी स्ट्रगल रहा, काफी कुछ बदल गया, काफी कुछ फेस किया है, काफी कुछ सीखा है। तो ये सारी चीजें डॉक्यूमेंट हो और लोगों तक पहुंचे, क्योंकि डीएनटी डिनोटिफाइड ट्राइब में जितने भी महिलाएं हैं, पता नहीं सबको मौका मिले ना मिले, लेकिन जिसको भी मौका मिले उसको लिखना चाहिए। और मुझे मिला है इस चीज का मौका, इसका मुझे आनंद है और मैं कुछ लिख पाई हूँ, लेकिन और भी लिखना चाहती हूँ, पता नहीं कब लिख पाऊंगी, पर बहुत इच्छा होती है कि और भी बायोग्राफी में और भी कुछ मेंशन किया जाए, क्योंकि मेरे बचपन का पार्ट उसमें बिल्कुल नहीं है। और उसके बाद वो जब बायोग्राफी हुई थी उसके बाद का जो भी सफर रहा है वो भी काफी लिखना बाकी है। तो हो सकता है कि एक बार फिर से देवी सर हमको उठा कर ले जाए और बाकी का पार्ट भी हम लिख पाए।
So another thing that, I mean, this biography was written in 2011, I believe, and many things have, many developments have taken place after that, and she's keen to write her biography again with all other developments. And what she's saying that when she is among few women in the community, among the DNTs, who is able to not only work but also to raise, is able to raise her voice, and also got the chance to actually document whatever has happened with her. So she is keen to write her biography in near future with other developments along with whatever she has written so far.
Thank you so much, Kalpana. I'm really sorry I forgot to introduce you, but if I introduce you in just one line, that is that Kalpana belonged to the Chara community, which is known, I mean, infamous for the brewing liquor, which is banned in the dry state. Gujarat is a dry state. And her travel, her journey, from the woman who is brewing liquor to the most busiest artist at the moment in the Gujarati film industry and in the theater world of Gujarat. So I think that is her introduction. I mean, that all happens because of just theater and the art activity we have been doing here. So I'm 100% sure, Kalpana, there is a lot of things which is still needs to write, and I hope you will able to write it, and we will publish very soon. Now, I will invite Dr. Madhu Singh. Let me introduce her. Madhu Singh is a professor at the Department of English and Modern European Languages, University of Lucknow. From a PhD in modern British poetry, she moved on to South Asian literary culture to the work of Mahashweta Devi, Hindi, Urdu progressive writers, modernism in Hindi short fiction, Kabir's mysticism, and to South Asian colonial studies, focusing on indigeneity, marginality, and colonial representation. She has been associated with scholar G.N. Davis People's Linguistic Survey of India, who is the founder of Budhan Theatre, and Bhasha for documenting the living and endangered languages, the denotified tribes, and the semi-nomadic communities of India. Her critical papers and translation have appeared in various Indian and US, UK academic journals. So over to Dr. Madhu Singh. You are muted.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Dakxin. And hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here and giving me an opportunity to speak about the book and about my own experiences, about my experience about the experience about reading the book. Now, let me first begin with the cover page. The cover page, which the first version, I don't know whether Anand knows this, but I had an opportunity to have a look at the first version of the cover page of the Freedom Stories. It was initially red with a Banjara shawl, but the book that I received is a green book. So much to my surprise, it had turned green, and in the margins I could see the denotified tribal people. So in a way, it was both literally and metaphorically true to the condition of DNTs. This is what I could read on the front cover of the book. Now, coming to the book itself, I personally feel that Vimukta Freedom Stories is an authentic testimony and invocation of Vimukta struggle of the DNT community of India obviously against the prevalent social injustices in independent India. All the 9 remarkable stories that I have read reveal much about the oppression of the DNT communities for ages and their struggle for social justice in post-independent India. Now, these stories, I feel, they define a philosophy of life emerging from the much maligned margins of crime and criminality. Out of the 9 life stories, life narratives, which also include play scripts of Budhan, I had previously read Budhan Bolta Hai, Confessions of Chara Actress by Kalpana, and the play script of Budhan. Because of my interest in the DNTs, the rest 6 of the stories are new to me. I read with much interest all the stories, and I personally feel that I could easily connect with the stories, not because I am a DNT, although when I read any story, I feel I identify with most of the characters. So, but here in this case, I personally sort of connected with the stories because of my interest in the subject, and also because of my interest in the subject, I had presented a paper on Dakxin Chhara's autobiography and play Budhan and Budhan Bolta Hai at annual South Asia conference at University of Wisconsin-Madison 5 years ago. The connection is also spontaneous and immediate because of my association with Professor Ganesh Devi, and also because I sort of translated his collection of essays, famously known as A Nomad Called Thief. Because Professor Devi wanted me to translate it into Hindi so that the book could attract a wider audience. So the book was published by Orient Black Swan in 2018. So this is a connection that I have with DNTs, and through not particularly, and also I remember Dakxin had sent me a 6 minutes long video clipping to which I presented at the conference. Now coming to Professor Schwarz's critical introduction to the volume, which appropriately traces the history of the brutal oppression of the criminal tribes in colonial India, as we all know. And then he talks about the 19th century, how in the 19th century, crime and criminality became a major preoccupation of the British administration in India, and how after 1857 mutiny, a lot of castes and tribes were given the criminal by birth tag within the ambit of Criminal Tribes Act of 1931. And in this way, they were systematically criminalized. He also talks about, I'm referring to the introduction, he also talks about the Salvation Army in disciplining the incorrigibles in hardened reformatories, and how these criminal tribes were made to do the hardest, the dirtiest, and the most dangerous jobs as free labor for the empire. By 1930s, there were 50 CT settlements across the country, one of them being the Ahmedabad settlement, which was administered by the Salvation Army from 1910, and later its inmates were released into the free colony of Charanagar, as you all know better than me. Then he talks about Charanagar in general, and how the DNTs are tribes which were notified as criminal tribes under Criminal Tribes Act by the British. After decades of facing horrors of this racial act, they were denotified by the government, by the independent India, on August 31, 1952. Unfortunately, Criminal Tribes Act was repealed, only to be replaced by Habitual Offenders Act 1952. And every day, as this day is celebrated as Vimukti Divas, there's no need for me to tell you this, but then I thought maybe in the process of talking about the introduction, I should also mention this. But far from improving their lives, the new act only re-stigmatizes the marginalized, branded tribes. Today, several variants of criminal tribes continue to remain outside the reach of affirmative state action. Stripped of their fundamental right to justice, equality, and freedom, these tribes live in fear of the authorities. This forms the theme of all the texts in the volume. Most of the stories, autobiographical extracts, all these focus around these major issues. All the texts, which are oral testimonies, play scripts, extracts from autobiographies, are moving personal accounts and reflections, meditations, almost bordering on a kind of very serious meditation on the subject, hovering in the interstices of hope, of hopelessness. Speaking of the existential anxiety, existential angst, waiting to be freed from the stigma of criminality, and waiting to be called free citizens of India. Among the shorter pieces, Children of Darkness makes me rethink what is right and what is not. What is the line? Where does the line between morality and ethic, morality and sin blurs? And it blurs completely. The story Pata describes the solidarity of the three distinct communities of the DNTs, whose anger finds an outlet in the destruction of the railway tracks, aptly so. Kalpana's story, on the other hand, is an outstanding, brilliant example of rising against all odds and making a place not only for herself, but also for the community. I could very well see, I could feel, I could understand the anxiety and the sorrow and the hurt and the hopelessness of the muffled voices which have been brought to forefront through these collection of stories. And I'm sure Anand and everybody present here, including Kalpana and Dakxin and Roxy and everybody else, I sincerely hope that this volume will invite the attention of readers across the country, nationally, internationally, people, readers who want to know more about the DNTs and the social injustices meted out to these vulnerable communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh. I think one of the chapter which is written by Bhimrao Jadhav, I met him and I took 5 hours interview. It's a very long interview, and he narrated like entire, what happened with them into the Solapur settlement, and very interesting incidents happened with the very known leaders, in Indian political freedom. Which is a very long book. I mean, which is written originally into the Marathi. But those are the narratives which are really unknown in the public arena, and that should be widely read by the wider audience. So thank you very much. And now I will hand over to Roxy to take over this hosting from me and introduce Shashwati Sonal, and then I will speak for a few minutes. Roxy.
So Shashwati, I don't know, it's very difficult to introduce people whom you know very well. So I'm just thinking what to tell about Shashwati, because Shashwati has been working closely with Charanagar since last, I think, almost 15 years now. And she's like she is more of a Chara than non-Chara. So Shashwati, I was just going through her biography, and she has produced 12 films so far. Her last film was wall paintings, but before that, her film on Buddhan theatre, and especially on the lives of the main few characters of Buddhan theatres. She followed Dakxin, me, Kalpana, and other people, I think, for nearly 3 to 4 years. And she has profiled our thought process from the very beginning. Professor Henry said that, he first met Dakxin in 1998. I think that was the time when Shashwati started meeting us, knowing more about, Charas and all. And she is connected to denotified tribes, and from the moment when the DNT movements actually started in India by Mahashweta Devi. So Shashwati, thank you very much for joining with us. And I'm sure, my introduction is definitely, it's very short of you. I mean, you have done many things, but this introduction is more related to your connection to denotified tribes. Shashwati, over to you.
Thank you, Roxy. There's really nothing more to sort of add, except to just sort of say that it was actually Henry who somehow motivated this a film project to go to make it on Mahashweta Devi, and we ended up and that's how we ended up in Bhopal, where you were performing Buddhan, and then and Tarun was very, very small then. And I think and I think Kranti wasn't even born. I think it was at that time, right? So
my daughter was our son was 2 years old at that time.
I think he was just a toddler, and Kranti wasn't even, Kalpana wasn't even pregnant with Kranti at that time. And, and of course, Mahashweta Devi never showed up, but you all were there. And what was I have to tell you, like, my first impression of meeting you all, I was incredibly impressed, because you were all, a lot of you were just teenagers. And now, of course, you're like adults and well into your careers and being so successful, and really you've done amazing things. And it's been an incredible journey to watch you all. But even there, at that time, I remember feeling really just so impressed at sort of the political sophistication of like basically were teenagers, of people who could like understand why that had happened all the way in West Bengal, and to people who maybe your language is can you hear me, Mike? Okay. And whose language you do not understand and you have not even met, but the very fact that you could like actually you just like captured the soul and spirit of that story, and you understood the importance of it. It was such it was a revelation, frankly, and I was it was just so impressive that basically you were kids then, that kids could really figure out like why that was important and how to talk about it, and like your worldview was so broad and so vast, and your sense of yourself and your sense of human dignity was just was really sort of incredible. So then it was like and then and of course then Dakxin got arrested, and so it became very it became very important then to just sort of like just sort of meet up. So that's what really so that's one thing I wanted to just kind of convey more than anything else. And it's been kind of very interesting to read the stories, especially I have to say, like reading some of the because some of the things I hadn't read, and especially I think reading actually Kushal's account was a very interesting, and also you sort of like to observe sort of the changes that have happened since then, and how he articulates things and how he sees things and how eloquent he is, and to see the ways in which the personal and the political is being connected and how that has changed over the last 20 years. And some things have changed and some things sort of haven't. And that's been like really interesting to observe. And I think the most hopeful thing is the power of sort of really seeing the power of storytelling, because Kushal really has kind of grown up in the theater, so to speak. And the confidence with which he's able to tell his story, and also the various kind of like nuances in it, and the storytelling has changed over time. And I'm sort of seeing the power of what the theater has been able to accomplish, and the power that happens when people can articulate their own story, and how this is a very sort of vital part of a community. So that's all I wanted to point out. And actually, interestingly, I've just finished a short film about the Van Gujjars here in Uttarakhand, because they're a nomadic tribe, and they've been terribly pushed to the margins. So, and I was just thinking of you all just the other day. I was like, well, this, it's like the journey never stops once you get on this particular train. So thank you for that. So I'm done. I'm going to mute myself now.
Thank you, Shashwati. Thank you very much. I would also use this platform to thank Karim also, because Karim has worked equally, equally hard to not only make the film, but also, connect with the denotified tribes, and always, present to guide people, whoever approaches him for any help within and outside the country. So thank you, both of you. Our next guest is Sonal Bakshi. Sonal Bakshi, she is sort of, I would say, we normally in our Budan theater, we call her, a walking encyclopedia who knows everything about most of the activities that Bhasha is doing, and who is an expert in, matters related to tribals, denotified tribals, and she's very articulated, and we are very thankful that Sonal was connected to us since the first day when this team of Budan Theatre, including Dakxin, myself, Kalpana, and all of us, when we first, walked out from our house to do something and to do some theatre. Sonal is connected to this group since that time. So such a long involvement with us. So Sonal is connected to Bhasha since many years, and her commitment and to Bhasha and for the tribals and unified tribals, I think it's unmatchable, it's unparalleled. So Sonal, over to you.
Thank you, Roxy, for that very generous introduction. I would like to foremost thank Henry, Dakxin, Anand, and your team at Naviana for bringing out this volume so beautifully. It is very pertinent that this volume, Vimukta Freedom Stories, is brought out in 2021 because 2021 marks 150 years of the Criminal Tribes Act, and 2021 is also nearly 70 years of the denotification that happened in 1952. Yet when we look at the social and political struggle of the denotified communities, we find that the gap between the implications of denotification and the realization of freedom is yet too huge. And this is where this volume becomes a very welcome one at this very opportune time in history. If we look at the DNT struggle, that I think it has been there since independence, but more so in a marked way since the 1960s, we find that it is a very layered one. And essentially, it speaks of freedom at whatever level or whatever space it occupies. Foremost, there is the DNTs would like to be free from being called a DNT because these are very diverse communities with a rich cultural heritage, and they have been lumped together as DNTs just because there is a commonality of their historical lineage. There's also a struggle to be free from the stigmatization, equality, acceptance from society, equal citizenship, rights, and justice. So this volume actually fills a gap because when you look at Adivasi literature and Dalit literature, along with the social and political movement of Adivasis and Dalits, the literary movement has been very strong, very, very strong. But if one looks at the DNT struggle, of course, in recent years, in the last 20 years, Budan Theatre has played a very vital role in sensitizing society towards the issues of the DNTs. The DNT movement that was launched by Dr. Devi and Mahashweta Devi ji, that also reached to the policy level. But if you look at the struggle itself, और अगर हम ground situation को देखते हैं, तो कई बार ये लगता है कि शायद वो struggle अभी भी शुरुआती दौर में ही है, क्योंकि आप despite all so many efforts across India, there have been small regional movements, national movements, but what the communities have gained is too meager. One reason is also that they have been dispersed across SC, ST, OBC communities and categories, sorry. And जो communities हैं वो ज़्यादा कहीं पे national leadership नहीं होने पे local interest पर ज़्यादा या regional interest पर ज़्यादा सीमित रह जाती है. That and in recent years, there of course there's been more research on denotified communities, like Madhu Kishwar ji also, Madhu Singh ji also said कि काफी बुक्स निकल रही हैं, रिसर्च हो रहा है. पर अगर हम इसका लिटरेरी प्रोडक्शन देखते हैं, what we know as literature or maybe creative expressions or imaginative expressions, तो ये काफी लिमिटेड है अब तक. और विमुक्त फ्रीडम स्टोरीज आई थिंक ये पहला पब्लिकेशन होगा जो इतनी सारी कम्युनिटीज को या इतनी वॉइसेस को, इवन इफ दे आर ग्लिम्पसेस, दे आर स्नैपशॉट्स, दे हैव बीन पुट टुगेदर. As Roxy said, I have long been associated with Budan Theatre since its inception, and two of the Buddhan plays have been published in this volume, along with some excerpts from Dakxin's autobiography, Buddhan Bolta Hai. I would say that Dakxin and Buddhan theatre are quite intertwined. And Dakxin has grown with Buddhan theatre has grown with Dakxin. And Buddhan Bolta Hai, the translation in English, of course, it has not been published as a full-length book though. Hopefully Dakxin and I should be able to move ahead with it now. It actually has a very interesting format. It's in the form of an open letter. So memory plays a very important role here. These are snapshots of Dakxin's own life as he struggles to establish himself. Also his struggle with the Chhara community for their rights, also against some of the practices of the community, and also his struggle for the DNT category at large. And if you look at it, if one reads the Buddhan theatre plays, if one understands them and looks at these plays and the autobiography together, then I think one would understand the politics, the aesthetics, and the ethics of the group as a whole. And I have been requesting Dakxin, and I would again request Dakxin that his autobiography, Buddhan Bolta Hai, ends somewhere, I think 2005 or 2006, with his UN lecture. Since it's quite open-ended, I think it would be quite interesting if Dakxin just added to it, because it's in the last 15 years that he has actually grown and matured as a social political thinker and as a social and cultural activist. Coming to this volume, I think, but I would say that one cannot escape the violence that these communities are faced with at various levels and spaces. However, interestingly, the DNT movement adheres to the non-violence and abides by the Indian Constitution. Navyana, I know, is not just limited to Dalit publishing, but many know of Navyana as a Dalit publishing house. So by bringing out this volume, I think Navyana too has broken boundaries. And while these are but glimpses, these literary pieces are also opportunities for more creative works from among the DNTs. For, as I said before, that we do not see a body of literature so far among the DNTs. And recently, to mark the denotification day on 31st August because of COVID, there have been more, so many webinars where very young people have been voicing their issues, their aspirations for the community. And I see that there's a restlessness among the DNT youth now. Restlessness for social transformation, restlessness for leadership, and restlessness for change, a positive, constructive change. So I think that, Anand, we hope that with this volume, we'll see many more writers emerging and also more publishers bringing stories from these communities. Also, I feel that literary expressions or imaginative expressions, they always complement the political struggle. Political struggles may, they are also bound by political ideologies, not to say that literature is not, but literature also deepens these struggles and also has a way of giving direction to political and social struggles. So on that note, I hope this marks a new beginning for DNT movement as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sonal. I would definitely, want that Dakxin would definitely, think of completing his, and you made a very valid observation that, Dakxin's growth as a political thinker has been, it's mainly last 15 years since when Dakxin has grown as a, political thinker. And I think this is the time to, take that biography ahead from where he left before a few years. So over to Dakxin. Dakxin.
So thank you so much, Sonal. I know you keep motivating me to write, further journey, and definitely we'll make it soon. Let me just conclude the entire conversation and say a few words from my side as an editor of this book, why this book is very important. Because you might aware that in 2018, there was a mass assault where I live, where Kalpana Roxy we live, where that place is called Charanagar. And there was a mass assault by the police, and police came at the midnight and they demolished, so many vehicles, and, brutally beaten up so many people, children, women, for no crime. I'm literally there was no crime. And I think that was the point when I had discussion with Professor Schwarz that this happened. And he told me that, why don't you write the minutes of the entire event? Because that may use, in future as evidence. And I started, because that time I was also targeted by the police, and I had I just flee from Charanagar, and I had some time to write it down. And because there was no work, I could not go outside. And that time, actually, I have written an entire narrative of that night of 26 July. That definitely, that paper, that narrative is not in this book, but that was the incident when me and Professor Schwarz came up that such kind of narratives should be available for the wider audience, so people can know actually what is happening with the DNT communities. And to my experience, I think literature has contributed a lot into the DNT movement, because Lakshman Manis Upra, Lakshman Gaikwad's Uthaigir, I think such kind of book have created a huge buzz and interest of, academia, activists, writers, artist world, into the DNT world, that what exactly these communities are. Because we know Adivasis, we know Dalits, but nobody knew actually about the DNT communities. Literature inspired, literature motivated many people, to know that who are these DNT communities, and whatever they are writing or whatever they are making, from their creative, pieces, people are able to see that who these people are. I think literature has a very important role, and I'm really grateful that Henry has, involved me in this volume as an editor, because I strongly feel when I see my autobiography today, after, that was released in 2010, and today 2021, after 11 years, when I read my autobiography, I feel that I think that was extremely important to document whatever we were facing. Because if we miss those kind of moment, I think the next generation will be not able to know that what is going to happen. And that is the reason that right now we are working with University of Cambridge. They are archiving Budhan theaters, all the audio, video, literary material, and they are going to archive at least for 1,000 years. So at least, for 1,000 years, Budhan theater will be alive, and their struggle, their members, struggle will alive. It will be always in archive or in the documentation, and the upcoming generation will be able to know that how this entire DNT movement actually initiated, and what was the role of theater, films, literature, and the political movement. So, I take opportunity to take really thanks to Naviana publication here, Anand, Alex, and entire team who has been working since, I think, 2-3 years, very detailed editing, so much communication, and finally the book is there. And I'm 100% sure that, people will be able to know the struggle of the different DNT communities, like Kushal's narrative, like Kalpana's narrative, like, Bhimrao Jadav's narrative, which is not at all, nobody knows that, he had meeting with Ambedkar, he had meeting with Gandhi, and Gandhi told him to bomb the police chowki. Nobody knew what that Gandhi would say to someone to bomb the police chowki. And he made the bomb, he threw the bomb on the police chowki during the British time, but the bomb didn't blast and he was arrested. And then, so I think such kind of narratives, such kind of revolutionary things, we are able to capture actually this in volume. And now it is there, in a book. So I'm grateful to Henry, who included me as an editor in this book. And I'm really grateful to Naviana to publish, our narratives, and now it is available, for the wider audience. I'm really grateful to all the guests here. It was really great to recall like entire 20 years journey. Shashwati, Shashwati's narrative, Shashwati's, involvement from the beginning. Even I motivated from Shashwati, from Kirin to become a filmmaker. While they were documenting, to the charas, I used to see their cameras, their tapes, DV tapes, how they are shooting. I definitely learned from you guys. So, from that journey, acting like a thief to, please don't beat me, sir, and Professor Schwarz narrative, constructing criminal tribes and acting like a thief, from history, to Ambedkar's view, to Gandhi's view, to Tilak's view about, pre-independence struggle of the DNTs, post-independence, Buddhan theater, DNT movement, role of the DNT, Buddhan theater in the DNT movement. I think there is a lot to say about this entire struggle, and whatever we have done or we have captured actually in this book, that is might be a very little. I think Sonal is right that I think we have to, we have to write it down, like Dr. Devi should capture us somewhere else, and, not force, but actually he's keep motivating us. But sometimes we are very busy in our, own personal life, and that is the reason we are not able to write it down. So I think this is the time that all the Buddhan theater should come again. We should call many DNT people actually who are interested in writing, and we should have a workshop, and we should actually come out with another volume of the collection of the narratives of the, DNT communities. So I think there are so many ideas, and a very interesting session, for me, very educating, session for me. Thank you so much, everyone.
Dakxin, thank you. I'll quickly respond to a couple of things Sonal said, which is to say, when 5 years ago, when Madhu Singh approached us with this prison memoir, she also thought there is this notion that Naviana does certain things, doesn't do certain things. And from the beginning, we have done things which others don't do. So for instance, publishing Ali Kobi Ekamen here, or even publishing a prison memoir, which is not necessarily focused on caste. If you open your mandate to the idea of equality and the fact that we are all in a struggle, and this is all part of solidarity. So I'm saying this is not the last book that on this issue that you're going to publish from Naviana. I spent some time last week looking at the work which Alice has been doing, the Buddhan podcast, that gives you a lot more ideas. And also the fact that you have to think beyond books, and autobiographies, and also what is it that is there in orature and oral culture, in terms of songs, in terms of other ideas, not necessarily what has come to be the predominant mode of autobiography, and trying to write for instance, Pilgrims of Darkness in the book by the famous writer, but that's of a completely different genre of storytelling. That's immensely moving, new, but it is written by a non-DNT person. And I was in fact discussing with Dakxin, what are the politics of that kind of writing, that mode of writing. So there is a lot more to do, and I look forward to working with Dakxin, Henry, and those of you who are here today for this. I certainly hope there'll be more people, but I hope you will take the book to more people, and we'll see more such books on this issue in the future from Naviana.
Thank you, Anand, and thank you so much, everyone, to be here. Really grateful to all of you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you all another time. Thank you.